Hello and welcome to Mastering Life Shorts webinar 21. Today we're going to be talking about negative self-talk. Now, I need to start by saying if your life is taken over by negative self-talk, that you can't move forwards in your daily routine in the way that people should, then maybe this isn't the best webinar for you. Maybe you do need to be looking for professional help from a doctor or a counselor. However, if you're like many other people, myself included, that when you're just going through your everyday normal life and you just sometimes get stuck in a loop of negative feelings, then you're in the right place. So let's start. So this is a typical day at work and you're sitting there at work and you're feeling average mood, and then maybe your boss comes up to you and says, well done, or maybe you win a contract, or you make a sale, or maybe it's that your loved one rings you up and tells you that they love you, and your mood rises and you feel good for a bit, and then very normally your mood goes back down again and you just feel meh for a while. Absolutely normal. That's what happens to everyone. But then what happens when your boss comes up and tells you you've done something wrong, or you lose a sale? For some reason, we drop, but instead of dropping for the same amount of time that we rise, we seem to stay in that negative area. And it's almost like our brains have got a negative bias. And this webinar is all about why they get stuck in that negative bias, and how we can move forwards with that in our lives, how we can get out of that. So it's all to do with this thing in your brain called the default mode network. Now, if you are not doing anything specific, then the default mode network is the thing that just runs through your brain about 50 to 80% of the time, thinking about nothing, but also thinking about everything. It's when your mind is naturally wandering. It's when you're awake, but not dreaming, not focused. You're daydreaming, you're reminiscing. Sometimes you're worrying. And it's really, really clever, because basically it's like just sorting through everything in your brain. And it's the default mode network that is when you're there, just, I don't know, on the rowing machine at the gym, or taking a walk, or just lying watching TV or doing a Sudoku. You'll suddenly think, oh, I haven't done this, or I need to ring my mum, or I've got this brilliant idea to go forwards. It's perfect for your brain just working things out. And that's great, as long as you're not doing anything. As I say, if you're doing something, you're not in the default mode network. The problem is that over evolution, it's been designed to really think about the negative more than anything else. And I've used this example before in Mastering Life Shorts. When we were cavemen, and you came out of a cave and you looked right and there was a beautiful sunset, and you look left and there's a saber-toothed tiger, you're going to take notice of the saber-toothed tiger and forget about the sunset. So it's really important for us to remember the negative things. But unfortunately, what happens in everyday life, when we don't have that many things that are trying to kill us, most of the time, this year might be being an exception, when we don't have all of those things against us, we still have this think negatively before positively bias in our brain that has kept us alive, that meant that all of our ancestors survived. But instead of using it for saving us, we use it for being really angry about that driver who cut me up on the way to work, or really ruminating over the fact that someone said something slightly shitty to you in the meeting at work, or the fact that your sale fell through, and you just go through it again and again and again. Now, I've done this myself many, many times. And it's just horrible when you're thinking this way. But why is it? Well, it's a bit like the front of your brain takes over what the default network does. The prefrontal cortex says, right, you need to think about this. This is really important. And then that goes back round in circles. So you think about that thing, and then it goes round and round and round. Now, what they say is that passing mental states become mental traits. So if you have regret about the past, or anxiety about the future, or guilt, or if you've been blaming others for things, if you've got these negative emotions, then you start to build circuits in your brain that stay in those negative loops. An example from my past, I remember when I first started in sixth form college in school, when I was 16, the first lesson with my English teacher, he made some joke, and for some reason, I don't know why, I thought he was having a go at me. And then from then onwards, what happens is, to my prefrontal cortex went, oh, he doesn't like you. Fed it to my default mode network. I'd then think about the English lesson and feel bad. That meant when I went back into the lesson, I saw him, I felt even worse, and it went round and round in circles. And it took me quite a few months to realize he was actually fine. He had no problem with me. He liked me, and he just wanted me to get great grades. And we all seem to have this thing. And it happens sometimes when someone has done something wrong, you get into a negative spiral with them. And it's really, really difficult to get out of it. Now, how can you get out? So I'm going to give you 4 strategies to get out of negative self-talk. Cognitive control training, replacing the bad, parts dissociation, when we meet Bert and say thank you to Bert, and gratitude. So first of all, cognitive control training. Now, one of the things I said is that the default mode network doesn't work when you're doing other things. If you're concentrating, you're not thinking bad things. So just before this webinar, I was slightly wound up about something. Right now, I'm so focused on doing this webinar, I can't think. I'm totally focused on what I'm doing. So what cognitive control training is all about is about noticing when you're in a negative spiral of negative self-talk. And it tends to be in those quiet moments of our life that we're just sitting there feeling a bit rubbish. So what do you do about that? Well, you do something. Now, if you have a task to do and you want to get into it, that's great. However, you can just sit there and you can force your brain to think about other things. So one example that people say is, what you do is you name the colors around you. So right now I can see a cream wall, a black lamp, a green plant, a red flower type thing, a black phone, a silver microphone. And immediately I'm using up that prefrontal cortex is used up in the visualization. That then tells the default mode network, be quiet, I'm doing something. Next, after you've used your eyes, use your ears. What are the things I can hear? I can hear a car going past. I can hear a slight buzz from the electricity around me, things like that. If you can then say, what can I smell? And by really focusing on the different senses, and especially if you go from visual, which is really in front of you, down to something as subtle as smell, that you really have to think about, then there's no way you'll be stuck in that negative bias. Then what you have to do next is you have to put yourself in a good mood. So have a stock of really great thoughts. So my go-to thought is a day I spent in Thailand with my boy, and we hired a boat and we went over this area south of the island we were on. Beautiful sea, ended up on a deserted beach, had a wonderful meal. I cannot possibly think about that day and feel bad, because it was wonderful. Or I can think about something in the future. I could be really looking forward to a holiday or Christmas or something and think, yeah, this is coming up. And if you replace the bad thoughts with something else, then it gives you enough time to then think a little bit more mindfully about the thing you were thinking about. The next way of moving forward, strategy, is something called parts dissociation. And the idea here is that the brain actually doesn't work as a whole. It actually works as several different bits. And what actually happens is there's like a competing competition between different parts of your brain to say, I'm the thing that's going to take over. So you have to recognize that there is a part of the brain that is ticking away all the way all of the time over bad stuff, whether it's stuff in your past or stuff you're fearful in the future, and it's doing that. And it's doing it for a good reason. There is a positive intent behind it. So the first thing you need to do is recognize that there might be some learning there. So I've had that thing in the past where I think I'm feeling bad about something, but I can't remember what. And then you remember that 2 days ago someone said something to you, or your boss called you in and had a go at you, or whatever it is. And so you have to recognize that there's a positive intent behind that, and it wants you to learn something and move forwards with that. Now, sometimes that's quite difficult. It's quite sort of weird to get your head around. So what a lot of people do is they personify the negative voice in their head. So my boy has Bert. He lives in my boy's head. Bert is this old man who's grumpy and really not very helpful. Now, Bert, though, has got a few things to say, and sometimes they're useful to learn from. Quite often they're not. So you listen to Bert, you give him a little bit of time to speak, and then you say, "Thank you, Bert. I've heard what you've got to say. Now please fuck off." And if you act like it's another person within you, then actually it helps in lots of ways. And you can use hypnosis to really get in there and understand what that part of your brain is really trying to say to you. So say thank you to Bert, and then tell him he's had his moment. Now you're going to take back over again. Another technique is by really getting used to practicing gratitude. Now, this version of gratitude practice was described by Amit Sood in one of his TED Talks, and it's the 5-3-2 gratitude practice. The idea of this is that if you're feeling great and happy and full of love, then you can't feel bad. So the thing you can do immediately if you get stuck in the negative loop is think of 5 people who have been wonderful in your life, who have brought stuff to your life. They can be living, they could be dead, they could be people you know, or they could be people who are distant. Authors could be someone. And you think of each one, you bring them to your mind, and you thank them very specifically for the thing they brought to you. So I'm thanking you for teaching me. I'm thanking you for being just beautiful and increasing the love in the world. I'm thanking you for your wisdom, whatever it is. And as you go through those 5 people, again, what you're doing is you're breaking the cycle and you're thinking really happy thoughts. There's no way you can be stuck in the negative. The 5, 3, the 3 is when you spend 3 minutes with a person you care about. And given this circumstances now, it might be online or on the phone, and you just totally appreciate them. And it's almost like you're just meeting them for the first time. Because one of the things is, as we get to know people, we start to see the little chinks and we start to criticize them. So for 3 minutes, when you first see someone you love, don't try to change them in any way. Just appreciate them for who they are. And again, because you're just opening yourself up, you lose that negative self-talk. And the last one is 2 seconds of sending best wishes to someone. Now, I was doing this today to my boy who was having a bad time with his boss. And I said, just sit there, close your eyes, bring her to mind and send her love. And he went, "What? I can't do that. I hate her at the moment." I said, "Send her love." Because if you send someone love, first of all, you can't feel bad about someone you're trying to send some love to. You also start to see that they are a different person. They have their own hopes and dreams. They have their own issues in life. And you start to break that cycle of they hate me, they hate me, they hate me, they're angry with me, or whatever it is, and break it down to actually maybe their problem is not with me. Maybe their problem is out there in love. So I'm just going to send them some love. Now, you don't just have to do this to people you hate. You can obviously do it to people you love. Or it's really, really fascinating to do it to anyone. And I've just literally walked down the street before, just going, "I truly wish you well," in my head, to every single person. And you just feel like you're increasing the love in the world. Now, that sounds incredibly woo, coming from me especially, but it's amazing. Try it. Today's worksheet that you can download from my website, englishleathermaster.com/mastering-life-shorts, goes through those techniques. It says, where do you drop into this negative self-talk? And then it tries to sort of unpick the talk and give you some strategies for moving forwards. I thought we'd thank Bert by giving him the password today. So the password is Bert with a capital B. While you're on my website, why don't you click that button that says experience coaching? Because it's a great time of year, especially with some of us getting locked down again, to really think about your future and where you want to go. And it's part of negative self-talk might be because your present is not in the right place. So maybe we might be able to ask Bert in a coaching conversation and find out what he's wanting you to learn about where you are and where he'd like you to go. Next week, we're going to be looking again at what's known as the Kubler-Ross change curve, which lots of people know about, but many people don't know. It's actually been misused a bit. And Kubler-Ross actually slightly disavowed from it because it's moved from where it used to be. So we'll be looking at change and how that affects people. So I look forward to speaking to you about that next week. Goodbye.